Hello, fellow chatterers and book lovers, and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious or you're lost. I'm Chatty and welcome to my channel, Chatty the Mad Chatter, where today I will be chatting away madly about all the series that I have started, progressed with and finished through the months of January to April. As always, it's going to be one shot, no editing. So cheers everyone, let's do this. Right, so I have a teeny tiny notebook and a cup of tea to get me through this. I'm surrounded by books. This is already the second take because I started waffling. So let's see how we go, fingers crossed. So let's do a little start of where I was on the 31st of December 2021. So I had 11 series I was currently reading at that point. I'd read one of the Inkworld books by Cornelia Funke, the first one being Inkheart, which is over here. I'd read two of the Shadow and Bone, the original Grisha trilogy by Leigh Bardugo, which I'd been getting out of the library. I had read three, I'm going to move out of the way here. You see all these books with the lovely weapons on the spines. Three of the Faithful and the Fallen books by John Gwynne. And I had read two of the Frostheart books here by Jamie Littler. I had read one of the Merlin trilogy books by Mary Stewart. That's these ones here. I had read, lost my page. Oh yeah, I had read two of the six Maya Angelou's autobiography, which the first one is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which is just there. I had read three of the four, and they're buried, hold on. Three of the four, plus a novella of the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. Just putting it back in the right place in its pile so I don't get confused later on. I had read two of the three Nevermore books by Jessica Townsend. I had read one of the two Locked Tombs trilogy. There's only two published so far. That is by Tamsin Muir. I don't have a copy of that on me because, again, I borrowed it from the library. And I had read two, this side this time, of the Chorus of Dragons. Oh, what a weird angle. There we go, that's better. Two of the Chorus of Dragons series by Jen Lyons. Two of the four, there we go, Chorus of Dragons series. And then I have read one of the 5 series in the realm of the Elderlings. So I had read the 3 Frostheart Trilogy books. So I've got one of those 5 series done, 4 series to go. So that was all the books I was currently reading at the end of last year. I then had 4 series that I'm up to date with. That is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, The Bloodsworn Saga by John Gwynne, Once We Were Witches by Sarah Driver, and the Mistborn Era 2 by Brandon Sanderson. There are since more books come out, so I'm not necessarily up to date with those now. So that's where I was at the beginning of the year. 11 series in the middle of 4 series up to date. So throughout the months of January to April, I'm now going to talk about the books I actually finished. So first one I'm going to talk about is the one I don't have. That's why I can't find it. So the first series that I finished the last book in January, and that was the original Grisha trilogy, Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. So I finished Ruin and Rising. So that trilogy of books is now complete. I probably will go on to read the Six of Crows and the Crooked Kingdom, but probably not further. Because reasons. I enjoyed myself reading Shadow and Bone, but it wasn't my favourite. I very much felt that this was a series that if I'd read it when it first came out, at that point in my life, I'd have loved it, I'd have been amazed. But I have read a lot of other things since then that I have preferred. However, with the third book, I was actually pleasantly surprised, which makes me laugh because I started reading this because obviously the Netflix drama series was coming out, and so this had the revival. It was on my list. I was hearing about it all the time, and it was one of the ones that I'd never kind of read or come across. So kind of had a bit of FOMO, wanted to get in on the action of that one. Can't watch Netflix though because I don't have it. Anyway, Jessie, Jashana and Liene, all channels I will link down below, were doing a live show as they reread the series, which was hilarious. I absolutely enjoyed those videos, hearing all their thoughts on it. And I always love watching live shows after I've read a book because it kind of helps. It's a bit like therapy for me. It kind of helps me organise my thoughts and be like, yes, that's why I was feeling frustrated with that. Thank you for putting it into words. Excellent. Or, oh, that's interesting. I did not get that at all, but I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. So they didn't enjoy the third one as much. I think they said it was their least favourite in terms of plot, but I'm very much a character reader, and this was the first time I wasn't feeling highly annoyed by the characters. I actually felt that I enjoyed more of the found family that we seem to be getting from the, what are they called? Grishas? Yes, from the Grishas. I kind of enjoyed all of that. I can't remember her name. Does it begin with a G? Anyway, girl beginning with G and David, I really like them. So I enjoyed their story. I also really liked feeling that we got more of them, and Elena? Yes, I think that's her name. It's been January. I felt she was more, this is what I've got to do, so I'm going to do it, rather than kind of being sad about if onlys and what ifs and stuff, which I just found very wishy-washy and annoying, and I just wasn't here for any kind of love triangle, and it was just highly irritating. Whereas I found Elena, Mal, the Darkling, I found all of them less annoying in this one. Obviously Nikolai's in his own category. Very enjoyable character. So yeah, I enjoyed how it all kind of came together, what they did with it. It was fun for what it was, but I'm not going to rave about it. It was an enjoyable time, but I don't need the books, and I definitely do not need to reread them. There we go. That's a long-winded first finished series. So my second finished series I'm going to talk about is Frostheart. And I love this one. This is, oh, I should have said Grisha, for those who don't know, is a YA fantasy series. Frostheart is a middle grade fantasy series, and I absolutely love it so much, to the point that I've just blown on my books and just kind of like dust has come up. I need to dust my books more. I bought the whole trilogy for my mum for Christmas because I felt she needed it in her life, and she has now read it too, and it was true, she did need it in her life. So Frostheart follows the character of Ash. It is set in the, possibly called the Frostlands. Anyway, it's all very icy, lots of snow. And there is a found family crew on a ship called the Frostheart. There are Leviathan creatures which kind of prey on humans, and everyone's scared of them. They sing a song which certain people can sing along with. So they have this like song link. They're called song weavers, but because of the Leviathans being able to sing, like song weaving is kind of outlawed. Like you don't do it because they are worried about what it will mean to like Leviathans attacking and all of that. So there's a lot of prejudice around song weaving. So the book deals with prejudice. It deals with sort of like parental loss and trying to find where you come from and what your role is in the world. It deals with a lot of choosing to do the right thing. Like most middle grades, really. But it's more than that. I'm doing a really bad job now of explaining this book. I have much better videos where I talk about it. But this series is fantastic. Like the characters are amazing. They're all sorts of different beings, and they all have their own like cultures and ways, and we have amazing relationships that we explore throughout this, like platonic relationships, parental relationships, and it's just so good. And it's about like trusting your own abilities and trusting in your friends and supporting each other, and it's so amazing. It has sad moments, it has moments where you get angry, it has joyful moments, it has moments when you are emotionally hit, and it is just a beautiful series, and the illustrations are incredible. So this is all illustrated by Jamie Littler as well. I'll just pick up the third one here. So on this we have this beautiful like Frostheart in the circle with sort of like 4 little Leviathan pictures around, and then we go through this little peephole, and here we have Ash surrounded by his song Aurora with another couple of characters behind him, and all of that is coloured. I have got sprayed edges on here, so we've got red with all of the kind of like Nordic symbolism that is on them. We have another illustration at the front of Ash doing his song weaving, and then we have a map in here of the Frostland, some of which we've explored and been to, some of which we haven't, so I hope there are like some spin-off stories to explore a bit more in this world. And I'm going to see if I can find a really nice illustration. Here we go. So some of them are like double page illustrations where you have got them going through the Frostlands on carts. You've got some Yetis drawn here. You've got lots of mountains, and I just love it. And then you get some little, and sometimes you get some little tiny illustrations. So here's one character here that is illustrated all in his frost furs. Yeah, so they're just a highly delightful read. And the illustrations are beautiful as well, and I adored this series. It's one of my favourite series. I will be rereading this for sure. So yes, I finished Frostheart as part of Polathon in February, so I read that one, and it was rounded off the series beautifully. It delivered on everything I expected it to, so the payoff was there from all the setup that we had, and it was an incredible story. So then, again, February was a fantastic reading month for me. I finally finished one of my favourite series, which is The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. So different feel to Frostheart, although again, amazing found family. So I'm just holding up all the books so you can see. Just for pleasing reasons, I have been so excited by these books. I just love that they have a different weapon on the spine. So Malice has got the sword, Valour has got the double-headed axe, Ruin has got the spear, and Wrath has got the warhammer. So I finished the series off by reading Wrath in February, and again, what an incredible series. I adored this series so much. It was everything I wanted from like an adult epic fantasy. It's very classic fantasy. There's a huge amount of characters, there's a big world going on, there's lots of lore, but again, like things that are set up, the payoff is incredible. Like there's so much world building in here, there's so much character development in here that you are waiting, like literally, like from either the end of the first book or the beginning of the second, there's moments where you're like, you are waiting for something to happen that then eventually happens in like the third or fourth book, but it's not like dragged out or like you're being strung along. It's very organic, it's very natural. There's a lot of hurdles that we have to overcome to get to that point, but when you get to that point in the story, the payoff is so good. It's so good. And this is the only book where I have actually jumped up after reading something and punched the air with my fists because I was so delighted about the payoff that happened in here. Wrath does an absolutely incredible job of wrapping up all of this saga. It is bittersweet. Some people make it, some people don't. But everything that was explored in here, where the world gets to by the end of the book, was just so well done. Like all those story threads came together. In John Gwynne's books, there is a lot of battles. I am not someone who typically reads like warfare and battles necessarily. I don't go out of my way looking for them, but I adored them. I absolutely adored them. It's so, I think as you are so rooting for these characters, and the way John Gwynne writes, it's like he holds your hand and takes you into the middle of the battlefield and is like showing you where the action is and what's happening to the characters. And then there'll be another chapter where you're seeing the battle from another perspective. So you're getting the next part of the story, but from a different view. So it's always interesting. It's always emotional. And you are on the edge of your seat, like rooting for the ones you love to triumph in these books. So there's always battles kind of from the get-go, but it all drives the plot along. It's not just like stuff for the sake of stuff. It's all got a purpose. And the culmination of the final battle in this, again, incredible. Like, the delivery that you get in these books is phenomenal. Like, I've only read The Faithful and the Fallen, and then I have read another book of his which I will be coming on to, which is the first in the Bloodsworn saga. And I do feel like the first books, they do devote a lot of time to like this setup and world building, but then after that, like, you can just get into the story and go, and you've got all, you know what you need to know about the world, you're immersed in it, and you know what you need to know about the characters, and you're here for them, and you're excited to see where their lives go. So yeah, this is incredible. There is like a series where it's, I don't know how many years later it is, but it's in the hundreds years later. So there are things left. The story is completely wrapped up by the end of this one, but the world still isn't perfect, and there are potential dangers in the future that can occur that gives the story for the trilogy that comes later. So I am incredibly excited to be getting to that trilogy at some point. It's not going to be this year, because I'm realistic. It is not going to be this year. And like I said, I've got another Gwyn series that I'm wanting to read. But yes, I cannot recommend The Faithful and the Fallen enough. It's, if any of that sounds like it's up your street, then please pick them up. Do not be intimidated by their size. Like, they are so easy to read. Like, the style is very direct. Like I said, John Gwyn holds your hand and guides you through where you're going. And I adopted one of the characters from the get-go in here. I enjoyed Malice. I had an absolutely great time, but I loved the other three. So yes, there we go. Faithful and the Fallen. I'm now going to pop them back up here. There we go. And so the final one that I finished was one that I started in January and then ended up finishing in February, and that is the Winternight Trilogy. And this is a reread. So because Evie was doing a read along on her channel, she was only Evie, and because I read some of the books in the summer last year, I wanted to reread them in the winter and enjoy the winteriness and enjoy the live shows and enjoy chats with other people reading them. And I'm a rereader, and I'm just going to have to go down to my child who's shouting me. So I'll come back and tell you more about this. So as I was saying, I am a big rereader. Less so now that I have so many things that I want to read. But I absolutely adored this when I read this the first time. But I think I was also holding back because I was scared about what could be happening to the characters that I loved and where the story was going. But on this reread, because I knew what happened in terms of plot, I could just immerse myself in it and not need to worry about things, because I knew how it was going to go down. So I could just revel in the present moment, and I could enjoy the writing in here. Is absolutely beautiful. It's so descriptive and vivid and atmospherical. And the character in this book, the protagonist in this book, Vasya, she is just like, I just want to be her. She is my idol. I wish I was her. I wish I had her strength. I wish I had her ability to just be unapologetic for who she is and just try and seize life with both hands. I wish I could be her. I'm not her. Absolutely not her, but I wish I was. So this is set in medieval Russia, and it does read a little bit like a historical fantasy. Like, it's absolutely a fantasy, but I think if you wanted to dabble in fantasy and really liked historical fiction, I feel that you would really get on with this series, because it is, the historical detail in here is incredible. And we had someone in the reading group who was Russian and was from was actually living in some of the spots and was living in Moscow, and would send us pictures of, this is where I think this bit was set, and had studied obviously history and was like, this is accurate to what we learned about in history. So all of that was just really incredible. Like, her research that she did for this was amazing, and I really want to see one of the ovens that the family sleep on when it's so cold in winter, and they have beds on top of it. Like, it's incredible, the culture that you got shown in here. So it deals a lot with folklore. So there are quite a few themes in the book, and one of them is the introduction of Christianity in amongst the pagan and society of like, what were they called? are they called spirits or demons? I think they're a mixture of spirits and demons, but you have like big ones that can control things like the weather or like times of day, and you have smaller ones that are attached to houses, or ones that look after the horses in the stable, or ones that look after the bathhouses, and they're called Cheroti, and they are amazing and they're so fascinating, and some of them are, what's the word, it's not scary or evil, but they're different. They have different laws to humans, so you're a bit wary of them. Some of them are delightful and adorable and completely hilarious, and some of them aren't. But it's what Valour is trying to do, is trying to keep up these traditions of interacting with the Cheroti and looking after the Cheroti, because then the Cheroti will kind of look after you, and it's got this very kind of natural balance, and just trying to allow, like, we can have the Christian religion as well, as long as we keep up our pagan traditions as well. Whereas it kind of turns into more of this battle of Cheroti versus Christianity, and that is one of the themes that kind of runs throughout the trilogy. You also have the political situation in Moscow that runs throughout this trilogy as well. So you kind of have more of the fantastical natural stuff, as well as the kind of like big city kind of political stuff. So books 1 and 2 have a very different feel to each other. And they're still great. You've still got all the characters that you're following. You've still got things that are relevant to Valour in there. But they do have a little bit of a different feel. Not massively so, but like they're still very much part of the series. But they do feel very different to each other. And it is very kind of split as to who likes the Girl in the Tower best and who likes the Bear and the Nightingale the best. My favourite is The Winter of the Witch, because it combines the two of them and brings the whole story to a close so well. There's fantastic secondary characters in here. There is a love story in here, but it's very like secondary to the plot. There are lots of relationships. There is a lot of feminism in here about the place of women in the society at the time, and I just absolutely adore this series, and I love it even more on this reread. Like, I really loved it before, but now I absolutely love it, and I think it is a masterpiece. So there we go. That's my thoughts on the Winternight Trilogy. So that was the 4 series that I completed from January to April. And I have made progress with one of my series. And that is Inkspell. I read Inkspell, which is the second in the Inkworld trilogy, which is a middle grade fantasy series. Although myself and Lucia, who I've sort of been buddy reading it, is basically we read it separately and then talk to each other when we can. And she has now finished the series and I have not. So we both feel that it's not really middle grade. Like, the first one is middle grade, but feels like it's very like high end, verging on YA. Whereas the second one does not feel like a middle grade at all. It feels like a young YA, but it's not. It doesn't feel middle grade. Like, look at the size of it. Look at the size of that. That's not middle grade. And it's a lot darker than the first one as well. And the first one had like some dark aspects to it as well. But it was also, this one felt a lot longer. It felt a lot more pulled out, and it didn't capture me as much as the first one. But I have high hopes for the third, and I still enjoyed myself with this series. I still enjoy the characters. I enjoy the concept of it all. So I have progressed with Inkworld, but haven't finished it yet. We're still going. And then I progressed with another series, but it's also one that I started. So basically I've read more than one book in that series. And that is The Lord of the Rings. Oh, and I should have said Inkworld is a reread for me. I loved Inkheart when it came out, got very excited when Inkspell came out, borrowed Ink Death from the library, and I've only recently acquired my own copy of Ink Death, and I wanted to reread them all. And I'm still failing at getting on with that. But I'm having a great time with the reread. Inkheart definitely stood up to my expectations. So I then did another reread, and that is The Lord of the Rings. So I've read Fellowship of the Ring and I have read The Two Towers and had a delightful time with both. And I actually listened to the audio by Andy Serkis, which was amazing. His voice is fantastic. He is a genius. Absolutely pulled me into the story even more. Because it's a reread, I'm happy to do audio, and I very much appreciated it. So I've read 2 of them, and I still have to read the 3rd one before that series will be complete. And I'm loving this reread. Again, absolutely holds up. I'd forgotten how much I loved it. Like, I knew I loved it, but I'd forgotten how much. I'd forgotten how funny it was. And I don't think I ever appreciated before how much it is about appreciating a good storyteller. Appreciating a good tale and story and legend, and also a storyteller as well. So I enjoyed all of that. So, other books that I have started are one that's not a fantasy, and that is Melissa by Alex Gino. I don't know if there are going to be any more, but Alex Gino has written a duology about 2 children in a schoolroom. Melissa is a trans girl, and then the second one follows Rick, who is gay, and it's them kind of coming to terms with their identity and being accepted by their family and friends and classmates. I don't know if it's got an official name, but I'm calling it the Melissa and Rick duology. So I've read Melissa, which is brilliant because I've had it on my list to read for such a long time. This book was formerly known as George, but it's now been republished as Melissa. My copy, I did the make your own cover because I had got one and I didn't want to get a new one. I wanted to try and save the book, so I just recovered it with the printable that Alex Gino has provided. So yeah, I really enjoyed this story. It was lots of fun. I do definitely want to get to Rick and kind of see how his story goes, and how Melissa is as a secondary character in that one. I then started another duology, which is Even the Darkest Stars by Heather Fawcett. This is a YA fantasy. It's a polar fantasy. I read it for Polathon, and I need to get hold of the second book, and then I think don't know if I'm going to reread this one and then read the second one, or read the second one and then decide if I would reread the both of them at some point. So basically, I'm not sure with this one if it's going in a direction that I want it to, or if it's going in a direction and I've misread the intention of the story, and I'm not going to know which way it goes until I read the second one. So I need to read the second one. But this is a really nice hardback, and I want the second one to be a hardback, so I need to track it down in a hardback. So I'm not sure when I'm going to continue on with this one. But I read this, enjoyed it, I think, but I need to find out where it's heading before I can give a full opinion on it. I then read, I don't quite know what order I'm doing this in. I'm just doing it randomly now. So the next one I have is The Way of Kings. So I originally had this on my list of books that I'm up to date with. Not up to date with, but trying to get up to date with. I just had one left to read in this series. But because I'm so excited for Rhythm of War, and because these books are massive and there's a lot of stuff going on, it's highly complex, and I wanted to properly enjoy it and appreciate all the little twists and turns and tales that come together. And I think once you've read quite a lot of Brandon Sanderson, you can get more from it when you reread it and notice all the little Easter eggs and things kind of coming together. And because 3 books in, you found out a lot more about the characters from when they started, it's really nice to go back to the beginning and watch them grow again, but knowing all the little hints and things you didn't get before, because you now know where they came from. So all of that is highly delightful. Had an amazing time rereading Way of Kings. So Way of Kings is now, it's gone back to the beginning for me. I'm rereading up to where I got to before, and then finishing off what is so far published so I can be up to date with it. Another new series is Ken Follett's The Pillar of the Earth, and this is not a reread, and it's not a fantasy. Exciting. This is the first book in the Knightsbridge Quartet, which is a series of companion novels set around the fictional town of Knightsbridge, which is kind of growing around this cathedral. So the first book is a lot about the building of the cathedral and all the characters involved. It spreads over a huge time in history. There's several years that go past during this book, which is why it's so massive. Where was I going with this? I did have a point. Yeah, so it's set during the reign of King Stephen and Empress Maud, whereas there was that battle for the throne, and then the country was in civil war. So it's very disturbed times in here, and you follow 3 protagonists. I did enjoy myself with this. There were moments where I felt it was a bit too gratuitous with the violence in here, but the historical details were really great. There were some characters I liked more than others, even though I felt you were supposed to like characters, or there were certain characters you were supposed to like, and there was definitely one you were told not to like, and that was almost laid on a bit too thick. But all in all, I did really enjoy the read of this, and I will be continuing with it. It's really nice to have a historical fiction to read because I don't read them as much, but I do still enjoy them. But I think I find it hard to pick up because they're so big, and there's so many other things I want to read, and I know it's going to take me a long time. So there's never going to be a month where I'm like, I've not got a lot on, I'll pick up a massive book. It's like there's always books that I'm wanting to read. And then another duology that I've started is the Sorcerer Royal. I can't remember if it's Sorcerer's Royal. Anyway, it's by Zencho, and it is a historical fantasy set in Regency London, but there's also more magical countries. There's links to fairyland around. I loved this book. I thought it was brilliant. I love the protagonist. Prunella is incredible. I also enjoyed Zacharias as well. And neither of them are white British. They both have heritage from other countries, and they both have brown or very dark skin. So the society that they are in looks down on them and considers them second class. So they're kind of rebelling against that. So it's so refreshing to read. It's got the witticism of Georgette Heyer and Jane Austen. But it's really nice to have that witticism, but also have a more balanced, reflective society, and be dealing with characters that are being called out on classism and racism in there. So I had a brilliant time with this book. I really enjoyed it, and I should be picking up the second one. I should be in the middle of reading it. That's what I should be doing, but I'm not because there's so many books and so little time. I then started a sci-fi dystopia, The Arc of a Scythe by Neil Shusterman. This is a YA series, and I had a great time with it again. Like, it really made you kind of question about humanity. There was all sorts of new technology involved. There was this kind of feeling about it was just sort of exploring, you know, if you have no higher to go, what is your purpose? If mankind have managed to get so advanced that they've defeated death, where do we go from here? How can we continue to advance ourselves? Is it possible? So then, like, are we just pleasantly living? Can we ever get those heights of emotional passions that we had before? And it was really fascinating reading this, and it was quite easy to get into the world, and the world building was really well done. I enjoyed both the protagonists in here, and I am really keen to see where it goes. I think the second one is in the world but deals with different characters, and then the third one pulls all those characters together in the final. But I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. Anyway, I had a great time with this. And the next book, 2 books, are from the library, and I don't have them, the copies to hand. But I have the second book, so I'm definitely intending to continue with these series. So the one I'm just going to hold up here, it's an Adventures on Trains book, which is a children's mystery book set on trains. I really enjoyed the Highland Falcon Thief, which was the first one, where our protagonist, whose name I've totally forgotten, Harrison Beck, and his uncle, whose name I've totally forgotten, can't remember, but I enjoyed them. I enjoyed them very much as they went on this train, and it became apparent there was a mystery to solve on this train, Harrison likes drawing, so he has a little bit of a photographic kind of memory when it comes to drawing, and he can notice details and things, which helps with mystery solving. And his uncle is a travel reporter, hence why they get to travel on trains. It was really comforting. It was a really cozy mystery. I really enjoyed it, and I want to continue the series. I then read a fantasy romance, which is very well known, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Again, I borrowed it from the library, so I don't have that copy, so this is the second one, which is a lot bigger. I was here for the ride. It was fun. Didn't find anything mind-blowing. We'll see how I get on with the second. I don't really have anything more to say about it. And I'm just going to check my notes and make sure I haven't missed anything out, because I'm literally just picking up the books and talking about them as I go. So feel free to talk amongst yourself while I check my list. Yes, I have missed one out. So I also started the Cloud Horse Chronicles by Chris Riddell. So yes, I read the first book in the Cloud Horse Chronicles, which when I was reading it, I thought could possibly end up just being a standalone, because it's been out for a while and I've not heard anything about a second one. But there is now due a second one to be published later on in the year. So this again is a children's fantasy by Chris Riddell and illustrated by Chris Riddell. I love his artwork. I love his whimsical world building. And I enjoyed all the world building and where the book was going. It didn't quite deliver on the climax the way that I wanted to, but I still had a really good time and definitely will continue with the series. I will pick up most things that Chris Riddell puts out. I think that's the only one that I've missed off. No, I do have another one to talk about. I'll talk about this one and then I'll talk about those. Okay, so I also started reading the Shades of Magic Trilogy by V.E. Schwab, which is another popular adult fantasy that I have never read. So I've been buddy reading this with Jess from Jess the Sleepy Koala and Megan, who goes by Sylvan Princess on Discord. And we've been enjoying. I'm not going to speak for them. I've been enjoying it, but it just falls short of what it could have been. I felt there were directions it could have gone in and things I was expecting it to do that didn't quite happen. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the series goes. So I enjoyed myself, but I felt it could have been so much more. I felt we could have had, the characters could have been explored more. We could have had more of the secondary characters kind of brought in, more kind of an emotional reactions to things. It did feel kind of like focused on the plot and trying to get this thing done without possibly considering kind of the consequences or what could have happened to kind of keep this going. So it all seemed to be wrapped up at the end, which has us questioning what's going to happen next for the series. So I guess we'll see. And then I started a new series. So far there's only 2 books out, but I feel there could be many, many, many. And this is Rainbow Grey, which is another children's fantasy by Lauren Ellen Anderson. I love this book. This book is so much fun. It gives me whimsy. It gives me amazing characters. It gives me a really fun plot. I just love the whole concept in here. So Rainbow Grey is a weatherling and lives in the Weatherlands, and all the beings in the Weatherlands help look after the Earth weather and control the Earth weather, and there's harmony between Earth and the Weatherlands. That is until things could possibly disrupt it. And that's all I'm going to say. Apart from, obviously, I always need to point out, big floofy cloud cats to fly on. So fun animal companions, really adorable characters, friendship, great parent representation in here. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. That's the first one. So I started this series and I will definitely be continuing with it. So that's all the series that I have read. So that's everything that I've been reading January to April. So let me go through and give you a summary of what that means. So as I said, I already finished 4. No, I've missed one out. Getting too ahead of myself. So, like I said, I have read 2 books in the Chorus of Dragons series. I have read The Rune of Kings and I have read The Name of All Things. However, this adult epic fantasy not only has a complex plot, it has a non-conventional way of storytelling, in that you have two storylines going on at the same time, and these are being annotated by a character who is recording the stories. I find this so much fun, but there was a lot of stuff going on. There's lots of different plot aspects to it. There was a lot of setup in the Rune of Kings. I felt that it flowed better in The Name of All Things. But because there's a huge gap between me getting and reading these two and then eventually getting my hands on the rest of the series, I decided, so I could fully appreciate them and enjoy myself, I needed to reread these two and then continue on. So this is now going back to the beginning, and we are rereading the series. So I read The Rune of Kings, had a great time, really loved getting back in here, loved it a lot more this reread, because I already kind of felt I knew where this was going, who the characters were. I already had a connection to them because it's a reread, and I picked up on more things this time round than I did the second time round, and the plot is a lot clearer the second time round. But I just love the tone of these books. They're so sarky, they're so funny. It is a very fully imagined world. There's lore, there's history, there's different races. There's a lot of stuff going on in here, and I had a great time. So what are we doing with all of this now? Yes, that's it. I'm wrapping up and telling you where I got to. And I'm also going to have some tea, which is probably cold because I've been yabbering on for a while. Very lukewarm. Not okay. There we go. Wiggly fingers instead. Very lukewarm tea. I'm going to hot it up after I have finished this. Oh God! Not just kicked over a pile of books. So that's wonderful. Right, notebook. What are we doing? Where are we? Yes. I have finished 4 series over the course of January and April. So let's move all of these out of the way now. So that was Winternight Trilogy, done. That was the Frostheart Trilogy, done. That was the original Grisha trilogy, Shadow and Bone, done. And that is The Faithful and the Fallen Quartet, done. So I have then started 14 series. 14. Started 14 series. That's a lot of series. And I made progress with 2. So that was The Lord of the Rings and the Inkspell. I've read more than one book in that series. All of the other ones, I've only read the first book in these series. So got a lot of reading to do. So at the end of April, it now stands that I have 4 series that are up to date, which is the same as previously, but the series are different this time. So I am up to date with Legendborn. There is only 1 book published so far. The next book is due out, I think in the autumn sometime this year. So Bloodmarked is coming out this year, but at the moment there's only Legendborn, so I can't progress any further. I'm up to date. Where am I going to put you? Let's move you along here. There we go. I'm going to put you there. So Legendborn has been put down as an up-to-date series. I don't have a copy of it, so I'm going to use a placeholder. So the Cloud Horse Chronicles, I'm up to date. I've read the first book. Second book is due to be published in October, and that is going to be called Tiggy Thistle and the Lost Guardians. It's already a delightful cover available for people to look at. The next series I'm up to date with is the Bloodsworn Saga. Oh no, it's not. No, ignore me. I'm not up to date with Bloodsworn Saga anymore because end of April, second book came out, so I'm no longer up to date. Oh yeah, I don't have this book either. That's why. So I'm up to date with the middle grade fantasy series Once We Were Witches. There's only 1 book out. It is by Sarah Driver. It tells the story of 2 girls who are in a school for wicked girls. Magic is outlawed. There are witch hunters. And they realise that they are the children, but their parents were witches. So that is why they are shunned by society. and they end up escaping the orphanage. 2 other different things happen to them as their story progresses, and that's all I'm going to say. But I absolutely loved it. Amazing book, needs to be talked about more. But the second book in that series is coming out in June, and that is called Twice Magic. Currently up to date until we hit June, then I will need to read that one. And the 4th series I'm up to date with. So the other series that I am up to date with as it stands is Mistborn Era 2. I have read all 3 books, and the novella that kind of comes between. So I'm just going to use, I don't have any of them apart from the novella, so I'm just going to use this as a placeholder. So that's the 4 series that I'm up to date with. Obviously it will all change as more books get published. So I am now going to talk about how many series I have on the go. So let's work that out. Got my little notebook to make sure I don't forget anyone. So Inkwell, I have read 2 of the 3 books now. Well, that's not a good angle, is it? I'm just falling off, and I can't edit it because I've done 46 minutes and I'm not redoing this. Let's just pause and get the books closer. So I've read 2 of the 3 Inkwell books, and I have the 3rd, Ink Death, to read. I have read 1 of the 3 Merlin Trilogy books by Mary Stewart. So the next book I need to read is The Hollow Hills, and I've got 2 of those 3 before I finish that series. I have read both I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings and Gather Together in My Name. There are a total of 6 books in Maya Angelou's autobiography. So I need to move on to the 3rd, which I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's one that's something about jazz and getting giddy like Christmas. I have the next book in the realm of the Elderlings to read. So I'll be starting the Live Ship Traders Trilogy, which is the 2nd trilogy, and that is Ship of Magic. The next book in the Bloodsworn Saga, The Hunger of the Gods, is now out. And again, because I feel like I'm really going to love it, it's very epic. I want to reread The Shadow of the Gods before I read the next book. So the next book I'm going to read in that series is The Shadow of the Gods. Slightly concerned about how tall this pile is going to be. I've read 2 of the 3 currently published Nevermore books by Jessica Townsend. So the next book I need to read is Hollowpox, but then another book is going to be published later on this year. I think it is in October. So the 4th book's going to be published in October. But I still need to read Hollowpox before then anyway. The Locked Tomb trilogy, I read Gideon the Ninth. I now need to read Harry the Ninth. That's placeholder because I don't own the book. And I do think so that's 1 of 2 currently out, but I think the 3rd is possibly going to be published by the end of the year. I then need to read I've read 1 book in the Knightsbridge Quartet. I've got another 3 to read, and the next book is World Without End. Add it to the massive pile. Stormlight Archive. I've read 1 of the 4 and 2 novellas. So the next book I'll be reading is Words of Radiance. I'm going to make a second pile because this is massive. I then have, of course, the Dragon series. I have read 1 out of the now 5 books, so the whole series is now available. Next book I need to read is the 2nd one, which is The Name of All Things. I have read 2 of the 3 Lord of the Rings trilogy. I need to reread the final one, which is The Return of the King. I have read 1 of the 2 Rick and Melissa books in that duology, so I then need to read, this is going to be my placeholder for Rick. I have read 1 of the 2 books in the Sorcerer Royale duology, and the next book I need to read is The True Queen. I've read one of the 3 books in the Darker Shades of Magic trilogy. The next one I need to read is A Gathering of Shadows. I've read one of the 3 in the Arc of a Scythe trilogy. The next one I need to read is Thunderhead. I have read one of the 4 currently published books in the ACOTAR series. The next one I need to read is Akamath, A Court of Mist and Fury. I have read the first book in I don't know how many in the Rainbow Grey series. The next one is Rainbow Grey, Eye of the Storm. There are currently 5 books out in the Adventures on Train series. I've read 1, so I've got 4 to read at least. And this is the second one, Kidnap on the Californian Comet. And then I have read Even the Darkest Stars. I can't remember what the second one is called, but the trilogy, the duology is called Even the Darkest Stars, and I need to read the second one, so that is going to be the placeholder for that. And here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 series that I am currently in the middle of. So, and because I enjoy it, I've decided to give myself some stats. So at the start of this, it's not a quarter, is it? I've done 4 months. Third. So for this first third of the year, yes, this first third of the year, I started on 0 series finished, and I've now finished 4. So that is plus 4 points for me. I had 4 series up to date, and I still have 4 series up to date. So we are 0 points. There's an imbalance. It's the same, not an imbalance. Shut up, Charlotte. And I was working on 11, and now I'm working on 19. So that would be minus 8 points, which gives me a total of minus 4 as a reflection on how well I'm doing with reading my series. That's fine. That's fine, because all of these series that I've started, I'm having a great time with, and that's the main thing. This has been a very long video, but we are under an hour, and I have given you many details on all my series, and I'm only going to do this 3 times a year. So I will be doing the next one talking about how my series have been May to August with the 2nd third of the year. Thank you so much for watching. If you survived to the end of this video, you can just write end in capital letters so I know you made it. And maybe you could just do a really tall building emoji like my stacks of books. If you don't want to necessarily write anything in the comments, but you want to let me know that you watched the video all the way to the end. Happy reading, everyone. Please tell me what you think of the series I've started, if you are also reading those. Let me know if you know how many series you have on the go and how many you've finished so far this year. Always love a chat, and happy reading, everyone.